They say the sea has a memory, that every wave crashing against the rock carries the whispers of the drowned, waiting for someone patient enough or foolish enough to listen. For 12 years, I believed my older brother Julian was swallowed by that memory. He vanished on a bitter autumn night, leaving behind an open bedroom window, a half-eaten dinner, and a family torn apart by the silent, suffocating weight of his absence. My father never recovered. Within 6 months, he abandoned our family home, took a job as the sole caretaker of Blackwood Ledge, a secluded, monolithic lighthouse sitting 3 miles off the jagged coast, and severed all contact with the world. When the police declared my father dead 3 weeks ago, his empty coat found hooked over the lantern room railing, no body ever recovered, I assumed it was over. The tragedy of my family had finally reached its merciful, silent conclusion. Then came the letter. It arrived in an unmarked envelope, sealed with heavy black wax. Inside was a rusted iron key and a single piece of parchment, a land deed transferring ownership of Blackwood Ledge to me. I arrived at the ledge on a Tuesday evening, aboard a hired fishing boat whose captain refused to linger. The sky was the color of a fresh bruise, heavy with the promise of a northern squall. Blackwood Ledge rose out of the boiling surf like a black tooth jutting from the ocean floor. The lighthouse sat atop it, an ancient column of salt-eaten granite, towering 90 feet into the gray sky. "I won't wait for you past nightfall," the captain shouted over the roar of the engines, dropping my duffel bag onto the wet timber of the dock. "If you're not down by 8, you're staying the night." I didn't answer. I just held the heavy iron key in my palm, feeling its unnatural cold bleed through my leather glove. The air inside the lighthouse was dense, stagnant, and thick with the metallic reek of dried salt, copper, and old oil. My flashlight beam cut through a decade of suspended dust, illuminating a rusted iron spiral staircase that curled upward into the dark. I climbed. My footsteps echoed like gunshots against the stone walls. In the keeper's living quarters halfway up, time seemed to have frozen. A porcelain mug sat on the heavy oak table, filled with black, hardened mold. A pocket watch lay beside it, its ticking long dead at 3:14. But what drew my eye was the mahogany desk in the corner, its surface covered in thick, leather-bound logbooks. I picked up the final volume. The earliest entries were precise, written in my father's strict, elegant calligraphy: barometric pressure, wind speed, oil levels. But as I flipped through the pages, the handwriting began to deteriorate. The ink became jagged, pressed so hard into the paper that it tore through the sheets. October 14th. The light is not meant to guide the ships away from the rocks. It is meant to keep the dark from reaching the shore. November 2nd. He is still down there. He calls my name through the ventilation pipes. He sounds like Julian, but Julian died in the water. I know what lives beneath the tide. My heart hammered against my ribs. I turned the page. January 9th. I cannot keep him fed much longer. My mind is fracturing. The key must go to Arthur. Arthur will understand. Arthur was always the stronger son. A cold shockwave washed over my skin. My name. Written in my father's trembling scrawl, months before he disappeared. I dropped the book. It hit the floorboards with a dull thud, and as it did, a sound echoed from deep within the tower. Not from above, where the great glass lantern sat cold and dark. From below. It was a rhythm. Clack, clack, clack. Like metal dragging across wet stone. My pulse raced. I grabbed the heavy flashlight, pulled the brass key from my pocket, and began my descent past the living quarters, down past the entry hall, down into the bedrock foundation where the staircase narrowed into a slick chute of rough-hewn granite. The air grew freezing. Ocean water trickled down the walls, pooling around my boots. At the very bottom of the tower, 30 feet below the sea line stood a massive, reinforced iron door. It was bolted shut with 3 heavy slide latches, sealed with fresh grease. The tapping was coming from behind that door. "Dad?" I whispered, my voice trembling in the damp dark. "Julian?" The tapping stopped instantly. A long, agonizing silence swallowed the room. Then, a low, wet rasp of breath sounded from the other side of the iron plate. "Arthur," a voice whispered. My knees nearly buckled. It was not the voice of an old man. It was young, melodic, yet warped by years of disuse. It was the voice that had haunted my childhood dreams. "Julian?" I slammed my hand against the iron. "Julian, is that you? My God, Father locked you down here?" "Arthur? Please," the voice rasped, weak and trembling. "The key, the iron key, he left it to you. Free me. Please, Arthur. It's been so long in the dark." Tears stung my eyes, blinding me. 12 years of grief, 12 years of unanswered questions collapsed into a single, overwhelming surge of adrenaline. My brother wasn't dead. He had been kept prisoner by a madman. I shoved the rusted iron key into the heavy deadbolt. It turned with a deafening crack. I threw back the 3 iron latches, grabbed the heavy handle, and pulled. The heavy door swung open with a dreadful groan. My flashlight beam plunged into the pitch-black vault. I expected a cell. I expected chains, straw, a dying man. Instead, the beam illuminated a fully furnished room. There was a generator humming softly in the corner, hooked to battery banks. Shelves lined the walls, stacked high with canned food, fresh bottled water, medical supplies, and cameras. Dozens of high-powered telephoto lenses and monitors rested on a wooden workbench. On the monitors were live feeds. Feeds of my apartment in the city. Feeds of my workplace. Feeds of the boat dock I had left 2 hours ago. And pinned to the granite wall were hundreds of photographs. Photographs of me, sleeping, eating, walking down the street, pinned alongside dates, schedules, and detailed maps of my routine. My breath hitched in my throat. The horror didn't enter my mind as a wave. It descended like a blade. What is this?" I stammered, backing away. From the shadows of the vault, a tall figure stepped into the light. He wasn't malnourished. He wasn't weak. He wore clean, heavy woolens, his face shaved, his eyes cold and dark as the Atlantic Ocean. It was Julian, but his eyes held no warmth, no recognition of brotherhood, only a terrifying, calm resolve. "Father didn't lock me down here, Arthur," Julian said smoothly, his voice no longer weak. "I locked him up there, until he finally jumped." I lunged backward, toward the door, but Julian moved with blinding speed. He didn't attack me. He stepped past me, out into the hall, and kicked the heavy iron door shut between us. "No, Julian!" I screamed, hurling my weight against the iron. The heavy latches slammed into place from the outside. Clank, clank, clank. "The world is a loud, terrible place, Arthur." Julian's voice echoed through the thick iron speaker grate. I tried living in it, but I couldn't find peace. So I built one here. But a lighthouse needs a keeper. Someone to stay in the dark so the other can live. "Julian, open the door! Let me out!" I beat my fists against the steel until my knuckles split, blood smearing across the cold metal. "I've watched you for 12 years, brother," Julian whispered, his footsteps already beginning to fade as he climbed the spiral stairs. "You have a good life, a complete life. Now, it's my turn to live it." Above me, deep within the bedrock of the island, I heard the faint, muffled hum of the lighthouse engine kicking to life. The great light began to spin, casting its beam out across the empty sea. And in the suffocating dark below the tide, I realized the final, terrible truth. My father hadn't lost his mind. He had tried to protect the world from what my brother had become, and I had just given Julian the key to step out into the light.